Stop scrolling for a moment, because this message is not really about money. It is about what your soulmate believes about you, what they secretly fear about your future, and why they felt the need to ask someone else questions they were too afraid to ask you directly. Somewhere in this story, there is a question that has been sitting quietly between two hearts. Are they really going to be okay? Your soulmate may have wondered about your financial situation, your future, your stability, and whether you are secretly carrying a burden that you never talk about. They may have noticed things you thought nobody noticed. The way you suddenly became quieter when money was mentioned. The way you stopped asking for help. The way you sometimes acted like everything was fine even when you were clearly thinking about something much deeper. And because they could not get the answer directly from you, they did something unexpected. They asked a psychic. Not because they necessarily believed every prediction they heard. Not because they wanted to invade your privacy. But because there was something about your life that had been bothering them. They wanted to know one thing. What is really happening with this person's money? And what they heard next completely changed the way they looked at you. At first, the psychic did not talk about a huge fortune. They did not say you were secretly sitting on millions. They did not promise some magical overnight transformation. Instead, the psychic said something that made your soulmate become completely silent. Your person is not as financially weak as they appear. Think about that sentence. Your soulmate may have been looking at you and assuming that you were struggling, uncertain, or somehow behind in life. But the psychic claimed there was another story underneath the surface. According to the reading, you were entering a period where your relationship with money was changing. Not simply more money. A different relationship with money. A different understanding of what money means. And that distinction matters. Because sometimes a person can have very little money and still have a powerful future. Sometimes someone can look successful and still be financially trapped. Sometimes someone can appear to be starting from nothing while quietly building something that will eventually change everything. And your soulmate may have sensed exactly that. They may have noticed that you do not think like everyone else. You may have gone through moments when you had to become extremely careful with your money. You may have had to postpone things. You may have watched other people move forward while you felt like you were standing still. There may have been moments when you asked yourself, when will it finally be my turn? You saw people buying things you wanted. You watched people achieve things you believed you were capable of achieving. You may have even felt embarrassed about your financial situation at times. But the strange part is this. Your soulmate may not have judged you for it. They may have been worried about you. That is why the psychic reading became so important. Your soulmate wanted reassurance. They wanted to know whether your future was going to become easier. They wanted to know whether you would eventually find stability. And perhaps most importantly, they wanted to know whether they could build a future with you without money destroying the relationship. That question may have been hiding underneath everything. Can we actually make it? The psychic reportedly paused before answering. Then came the shocking statement. The money problem is not permanent. But the fear around money is. Your soulmate immediately knew what that meant. You may have been carrying an emotional fear that was much bigger than your actual financial problem. Maybe you are afraid of losing what you have. Maybe you are afraid of becoming dependent on someone. Maybe you are afraid of being judged because you do not have enough. Maybe you are afraid that if someone truly loves you, they will eventually discover that your life is not as financially secure as they imagined. And that fear can make a person behave differently. You might avoid conversations about money. You might pretend you do not care. You might say, "I will figure it out." And you probably will. But the psychic told your soulmate that your greatest financial breakthrough would not come from luck alone. It would come from a decision. One serious decision. A decision to stop treating yourself like someone who is destined to struggle forever. Your soulmate reportedly became emotional when they heard this. Because they suddenly remembered all the times you had underestimated yourself. They remembered moments when you said things like, "I am not ready yet. I cannot afford that. Maybe someday. I am still trying to figure things out." And perhaps they realized something. You were not lazy. You were not incapable. You were afraid. Afraid of making the wrong move. Afraid of losing money. Afraid of trusting the wrong person. Afraid of starting something and watching it fail. And that fear may have been holding back a much bigger version of you. The psychic then asked your soulmate a strange question. Does this person have a tendency to carry everything alone? Your soulmate did not even need to answer. They knew. You do. You may be the kind of person who says, "I'm fine," even when you are not. You may hate asking people for money. You may avoid telling someone when you are struggling. You may feel responsible for fixing your own problems. And while that independence can be powerful, it can also become a wall. Your soulmate may have seen that wall. They may have wanted to get closer, but they did not know how. So instead of asking you directly, they asked someone else. And what they discovered made them question everything. The psychic said your financial future was connected to your ability to trust. Not blindly. Not foolishly. But intelligently. You may have experienced disappointment before. Someone may have taken advantage of your trust. Someone may have promised something and failed to deliver. Someone may have borrowed money and never returned it. Or perhaps you simply watched people around you lose everything because they trusted the wrong opportunity. Whatever happened, it taught you a lesson. Never depend on anyone. That lesson protected you. But it also made you suspicious of opportunities. It made you hesitate. It made you think too much. And sometimes, the difference between being prepared and being afraid is very small. You research. You think. You wait. You calculate. And then you wait again. Meanwhile, the opportunity passes. The psychic told your soulmate that this pattern was changing. That was the part that shocked them. Because they had been expecting to hear about your current financial situation. Instead, the conversation became about your future potential. The psychic described a person who could eventually create multiple sources of income. A person who would stop depending on a single path. A person who would learn to make money work differently. And your soulmates suddenly saw you in a new light. They realized that perhaps you were not behind. Perhaps you were building. Slowly. Quietly. Without announcing every step. And there is something else you need to understand. The psychic did not say that money would magically appear in your hands. The message was much more grounded than that. The opportunity would come, but you would have to recognize it. That means your next financial chapter may require action. Maybe a business idea. Maybe a new job. Maybe a skill you have been ignoring. Maybe an old idea you once abandoned. Maybe a person who brings an opportunity into your life. Or maybe something completely different. The important part is not the exact form. The important part is that you may soon be placed in a situation where you have to choose between staying comfortable and taking a calculated risk. And your soulmate may already sense that this choice is coming. That is why their reaction was so emotional. Because they do not only see your present. They see potential. But there is another shocking detail. The psychic said your soulmate's own feelings about money are changing too. Perhaps they have always believed that love and money should remain separate. Maybe they thought, I will handle my finances, and they will handle theirs. But after hearing the reading, they started thinking differently. They began imagining what it would be like to build something together. Not necessarily sharing every rupee. Not necessarily combining every account. But building stability as a team. And that thought scared them. Because real love requires vulnerability. Money is one of the biggest forms of vulnerability in a relationship. When you tell someone how much you earn, you reveal something. When you admit you have debt, you reveal something. When you admit you are afraid of losing everything, you reveal something. When you say, I want a better life, but I don't know how to get there, you reveal something even deeper. You reveal your uncertainty. And your soulmate may have realized that they want to be the person you can say that to. They do not want you to perform strength around them. They want the real version of you. The version who sometimes gets scared. The version who sometimes doubts. The version who dreams bigger than they admit. The psychic then said something that your soulmate was not prepared to hear. You are worried that this person will reject you because of money. That statement hit hard. Because perhaps this fear exists inside you. Maybe you have wondered whether someone could truly love you if your financial life is not perfect. Maybe you have thought, what if they find someone more successful? What if they want a richer partner? What if I cannot give them the life they deserve? And if you have ever thought that, listen carefully. Your value is not a bank balance. Your ability to love, your character, your loyalty, your discipline, your courage, and your willingness to grow cannot be measured by an account statement. Money matters. Of course it does. Financial stability can reduce stress and create opportunities. But money alone does not create a meaningful relationship. And your soulmate may have finally understood that. They may have realized they were not looking for someone who already had everything. They were looking for someone who was willing to build. And that is a completely different thing. The psychic then revealed another detail. Your soulmate may have been secretly worried that you were hiding a financial problem. Something you had not told them. Perhaps debt. Perhaps a failed investment. Perhaps a family responsibility. Perhaps a business problem. Perhaps a financial mistake from the past. They wondered. Why don't they tell me? And maybe the answer is simple. Because you are afraid that the moment you reveal your problem, their feelings will change. But the psychic reportedly said, they are not hiding money. They are hiding fear. That sentence changed the atmosphere completely. Your soulmate realized they may have misunderstood you. They thought you were being distant. But perhaps you were protecting yourself. They thought you were avoiding the future. But perhaps you were trying to become stable before talking about it. They thought you did not care. But perhaps you cared too much. And suddenly, your silence started making sense. Your soulmate may have remembered every conversation where you changed the subject when the future came up. Every time they asked what you wanted. Every time they mentioned marriage, home, travel, family, business, or long-term plans. And every time you gave a vague answer. Maybe now they understand why. You wanted to be ready. You wanted to have something to offer. You wanted to stand beside them without feeling like a burden. But there is a problem with that mindset. You do not have to become perfect before you deserve love. You do not have to become wealthy before you deserve commitment. You do not have to solve every problem alone before someone can stand beside you. Your soulmate may be realizing that right now. And perhaps that is the biggest discovery from this entire psychic conversation. Not that you are going to become rich. Not that money is magically coming. But that your soulmate sees a future in which you become financially stronger because you finally stop allowing fear to control your decisions. Think about how powerful that is. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. You have learned more. You have become more disciplined. You have stopped wasting money trying to impress people. You have stopped chasing every shortcut. You have learned how to recognize real opportunities. You have started saving. You have started building. You have become more confident. And suddenly, the person who once felt financially uncertain is now making decisions from a place of strength. That is the transformation the psychic described. But then came the part that truly shocked your soulmate. The psychic said, "Your soulmate may benefit from your success, but they are not the source of it. That means your future cannot depend completely on another person. You have your own path. Your own lessons. Your own growth. Your own responsibility. And that is important because healthy love is not one person rescuing another. Healthy love is two people becoming stronger while standing beside each other. Your soulmate may support you. They may encourage you. They may open a door. They may introduce you to someone. They may believe in your idea before anyone else does. But you still have to walk through that door. You still have to do the work. And perhaps that is why this message feels so intense. Because something inside you already knows that your next chapter cannot look like your previous one. You cannot keep repeating the same financial habits and expect a completely different life. You cannot keep saying, "someday," if you secretly know the time to act is now. You cannot keep letting embarrassment stop important conversations. And you cannot let fear convince you that your soulmate only wants you when everything is perfect. Maybe they want to build with you. Maybe they want to know the real you. Maybe they want to understand what keeps you awake at night. Maybe they want to hear your dreams. Not the dreams you tell everyone. The ones you rarely say out loud. The business you want to create. The home you want. The lifestyle you imagine. The financial freedom you crave. The family you want someday. The life where you wake up without constantly worrying about the next expense. Your soulmate may have seen that dream inside you. And perhaps that is why they asked the psychic. They wanted to know whether your dream had a future. The answer they received was not simple. The psychic said your path would involve a period of testing. There could be an opportunity that initially looks too small. Do not underestimate small beginnings. A small customer can become a major client. A small idea can become a business. A small skill can become an income stream. A small amount saved consistently can become significant over time. The danger is expecting the breakthrough to look dramatic. Sometimes the biggest financial transformation begins quietly. One decision. One phone call. One application. One product. One client. One conversation. One opportunity. And then another. Your soulmate may have been told that your future wealth would be built through consistency rather than sudden luck. That is why the reading affected them. Because they recognized your personality in that description. You are capable of continuing when other people quit. You may complain. You may become frustrated. You may feel tired. But something inside you keeps going. That persistence could become one of your greatest financial strengths. However, the psychic also gave a warning. Do not let love become a financial weakness. This part is important. If someone loves you, that does not automatically mean you should give them unlimited access to your money. If someone promises you unbelievable returns, do not invest just because you trust them. If someone pressures you to send money quickly, slow down. If an opportunity requires secrecy, be careful. If someone says, you have to decide right now, walk away and think. Your future deserves patience. Your soulmate may care about you deeply, but even love requires boundaries. The reading suggested that your financial breakthrough would come when you combine an open heart with a clear mind. Love with wisdom. Trust with verification. Hope with planning. Confidence with discipline. That is the balance. And then your soulmate asked the question they had been avoiding. What about us? The psychic looked at them and reportedly said, you are connected to this person's future, but you cannot force their timing. That statement changed everything. Because maybe your soulmate has been waiting. Waiting for you to become more stable. Waiting for you to communicate. Waiting for you to make a move. Waiting for you to stop being afraid. But perhaps they finally realized they cannot control your timeline. They can only decide whether they want to walk beside you. And perhaps they do. Maybe they are not looking for perfection. Maybe they are looking for honesty. Maybe they want you to say, I am scared. I am trying. I have a plan. I want to build something. I do not know exactly how everything will work out, but I am willing to work for it. Imagine how different that conversation could feel. No pretending. No hiding. No financial shame. No performance. Just truth. Your soulmate may be waiting for exactly that. And here is where the story becomes even more interesting. The psychic said there was a financial lesson connected to your relationship. You may learn that love is not about proving what you can provide. It is about discovering what you can build together. There is a huge difference. If you constantly feel like you need to buy affection, pay for everything, solve every problem, or appear financially successful, you will exhaust yourself. But if you build a relationship based on respect, communication, and shared goals, money becomes a tool instead of a measurement of love. Your soulmate may be starting to understand this. They may have realized that they do not need you to be rich. They need you to be real. And maybe that is the shocking truth they discovered. They were not really worried about your money. They were worried about losing you. Read that again. They may have asked about money because money was the easiest question to ask. But underneath it was another question. Will this person still be in my life when everything changes? That is what they truly wanted to know. Will you still choose them when life becomes better? Will you still remember them when you become successful? Will you trust them when you have more options? Will you allow them to see you when you are vulnerable? Will you let them celebrate your wins? Will you let them comfort you during your losses? Those are the real questions. And maybe you have been asking the same questions about them. Will they stay? Will they judge me? Will they understand? Will they support me? Will they disappear when things get difficult? This is why the money conversation became so emotional. Because money was never the whole story. It was a symbol. A symbol of security. A symbol of future. A symbol of fear. A symbol of worth. A symbol of whether two people can create something lasting. The psychic allegedly told your soulmate that the next stage of your life would force you to redefine what success means. Success may not be the expensive car. It may not be the biggest house. It may not be showing everyone that you made it. Success could simply be waking up without fear. Being able to handle an emergency. Having savings. Owning something you built. Supporting the people you love without destroying yourself. Being able to say no to bad opportunities. Having control over your time. And being with someone who does not make you feel inadequate. That is real wealth. And perhaps your soulmate wants exactly that kind of future with you. There is another possibility the psychic mentioned. A financial opportunity may come through something connected to your past. Something you once considered useless. A skill you abandoned. A contact you stopped speaking to. An idea you thought was too ordinary. A project that failed the first time. Sometimes life brings us back to unfinished doors. And when that happens, do not automatically assume that because something failed before, it can never work. You may have changed. Your knowledge may have changed. The market may have changed. Your approach may have changed. The same idea can produce a different result when the person behind it has grown. Your soulmate may become part of this chapter simply by encouraging you to try again. Maybe they say one sentence. Why don't you give it another chance? And that sentence could stay with you. You may not realize how powerful encouragement can be. One person's belief can sometimes give another person the courage to act. But remember, this is not a promise that a psychic can guarantee your financial future. No reading can replace real financial planning, research, or professional advice. Treat the message as reflection and entertainment, not certainty. The real power is in what you choose to do next. And that may be the lesson your soulmate discovered. They cannot predict your money. But they can observe your character. They can see how you respond when life becomes difficult. They can see whether you keep learning. They can see whether you take responsibility. They can see whether you treat people well when you have nothing to gain. Those things matter far more than a prediction. The psychic's final statement was perhaps the most emotional of all. Your soulmate is not waiting for your money. They are waiting for you to believe in your future. Your soulmate reportedly sat quietly after hearing that. Because they knew exactly what it meant. They had been watching you doubt yourself. They had seen your hesitation. They had noticed your silence. And perhaps they finally understood that you were not rejecting them. You were trying to become someone you believed was worthy of them. But what if you already are? What if you do not have to earn love by becoming financially perfect? What if your soulmate does not need a finished version of you? What if they simply want to know whether you are willing to grow? That is the question. Not, how much money do you have? But, what are you willing to build? Not, are you successful yet? But, are you moving forward? Not, can you give me everything? But, can we be honest with each other while we build our lives? That is a much stronger foundation. So if this story feels strangely familiar, do not immediately look for a magical sign. Look at your real life. Ask yourself what you have been avoiding. What financial conversation have you been postponing? What opportunity have you been afraid to explore? What habit is quietly draining your money? What skill could you develop? What debt needs a plan? What savings goal needs structure? What dream keeps returning even though you keep pushing it away? And most importantly, what are you afraid your soulmate will think if they discover the truth about your finances? Because the answer to that question may reveal more about you than any psychic reading ever could. Maybe you are afraid they will think you are not enough. Maybe you are afraid they will compare you to someone else. Maybe you are afraid they will leave. But love that depends on pretending is not the kind of love you want. You want a connection where truth makes the bond stronger. Where vulnerability creates closeness. Where two people can talk about difficult subjects without turning against each other. Where financial goals can be discussed without shame. Where both people understand that life has seasons. Sometimes one person earns more. Sometimes the other person carries more responsibility. Sometimes both struggle. Sometimes both succeed. The balance can change. What should remain is respect. And perhaps that is exactly what your soulmate learned during that strange conversation with the psychic. They did not discover that you were secretly rich. They discovered something much more valuable. They discovered that your future cannot be judged by your current circumstances. They discovered that your fear is not your destiny. They discovered that your silence does not mean you do not care. And they discovered that they may have been looking at your money when they should have been looking at your heart. So what happens now? Maybe your soulmate approaches you. Maybe they ask a simple question. How are things really going? And this time, you do not say, fine. You tell the truth. Maybe you say, I am figuring things out. Maybe you say, I have a plan. Maybe you say, I am worried, but I am not giving up. And perhaps they smile. Perhaps they say, I know. And suddenly, the wall begins to disappear. That could be the real beginning. Not a lottery win. Not a mysterious fortune. Not an unbelievable prediction. A conversation. A decision. A new habit. A new opportunity. A new level of confidence. And maybe, eventually, a completely different financial life. Your soulmate may have asked a psychic about your money because they wanted to know what the future held. But perhaps the truth they discovered is that neither of you can know the future with certainty. You can only build it. One choice at a time. One honest conversation at a time. One disciplined decision at a time. One opportunity at a time. And if your soulmate is truly meant to walk beside you, they will not need you to arrive at the destination before they believe in the journey. They will understand that you are still becoming. And you will understand that they are becoming too. That is what makes real connection powerful. Two imperfect people. Two unfinished stories. Two people who have fears, dreams, mistakes, responsibilities, and hopes. And somehow, they still choose each other. So tonight, if you are thinking about money, do not let fear control you. If you are thinking about your soulmate, do not assume they only care about what you can provide. If you are thinking about your future, do not assume your current situation is permanent. And if you are thinking about the psychic reading, remember the deeper message. The shocking truth was never that your soulmate discovered some secret amount of money. The shocking truth was that they discovered your potential. They discovered that beneath the uncertainty was ambition. Beneath the silence was fear. Beneath the fear was determination. And beneath everything was a person who wanted to build a better life. Perhaps your soulmate saw something in you that you stopped seeing in yourself. Perhaps they saw the version of you who keeps going. The version who learns. The version who becomes wiser after every mistake. The version who eventually stops chasing appearances and starts building real security. And perhaps that is the person they are waiting for. Not a millionaire. Not a perfect provider. Not someone with a flawless financial history. You. The real you. The growing you. The honest you. The person who is willing to say, I may not have everything yet, but I am not finished. That sentence can change everything. Because your current bank balance is a number. Your future is a process. Your character is your foundation. Your choices are your tools. And your relationships are part of the life you are building. So if your soulmate really did ask a psychic about your money, maybe the most important answer they received was not about money at all. Maybe they were told that your future is still being written. Maybe they were told that you are capable of more than you realize. Maybe they were told that the person they care about is entering a period of growth. And maybe they were told one final thing. If you want to know whether their future is bright, stop looking at what they have today. Look at what they are becoming. Your soulmate may never tell you about that conversation. They may keep it secret. They may pretend they never asked. But something may have changed inside them. They may look at you differently. They may become more patient. They may ask deeper questions. They may encourage your plans. They may start talking about the future again. And if that happens, pay attention. Not because a psychic predicted it, but because real relationships reveal themselves through real behavior. Watch what they do. Listen to what they say. And most importantly, be honest about what you want. Your financial future deserves attention. Your emotional future deserves attention. And your relationship deserves truth. Do not allow money to become the thing that separates two people who genuinely care about each other. Talk. Plan. Learn. Grow. Protect yourself. Protect your future. And never confuse financial struggle with personal failure. You may be in a chapter, not the entire story. The chapter can change. The strategy can change. The income can change. The circumstances can change. And you can change. Maybe that is the real shocking truth your soulmate discovered. They were not looking at someone who was doomed to struggle. They were looking at someone who had not yet reached their full potential. And perhaps, somewhere deep inside, you already know it. You know there is more for you. More stability. More confidence. More opportunity. More wisdom. More peace. More freedom. And maybe, if the connection is genuine, more love too. So before you leave this message, ask yourself one final question. If money was no longer the thing you were afraid of, what would you finally admit you want? Would you build something? Would you start over? Would you tell your soulmate the truth? Would you finally take your dreams seriously? Would you stop comparing yourself to everyone else? Would you start preparing for the future instead of constantly worrying about it? Whatever your answer is, remember this. You do not need a psychic to decide your future. You need awareness. You need courage. You need discipline. You need honesty. And sometimes, you need one person who looks at you and says, I believe you can do this. Maybe your soulmate is that person. Maybe that is what they discovered. Maybe they went searching for information about your money and came back with something much deeper. A reason to believe in you. A reason to stop judging your present. A reason to imagine a future. And perhaps that future begins with something very simple. You finally stop hiding. You finally speak. You finally take the next step. And you finally understand that your worth was never determined by how much money you had in your hands. It was always reflected in what you were willing to become. Your soulmate may have asked a psychic about your money. But the truth they discovered was about your heart, your potential, your fears, and the future you are capable of building. And that truth may have shocked them because, for the first time, they realized something they had not fully understood before. You are not finished. Your story is not finished. Your financial chapter is not finished. Your love story is not finished. And whatever your current circumstances look like, there is still room for change. So take a breath. Look forward. Make the plan. Protect your money. Choose your opportunities carefully. Have the difficult conversation. And if your soulmate is standing beside you, let them see the real you. Because perhaps the greatest wealth you can ever build is not something that sits in a bank. It is a life where you have peace in your mind, purpose in your work, honesty in your relationships, and someone beside you who does not love you because of what you own. They love you because of who you are. And if that is what your soulmate discovered that night, then perhaps the shocking truth was never about your money. It was about your future. And your future may be far bigger than either of you expected.